Well, we're back here again, folks. I'm not going to have the DJ rock the halls. I'm not going to have him rock the ward. I'm just going to get into the topic. The topic today is the emotional toll of abusive relationships. Welcome back to the podcast, first of all. Today's episode is a heavy one, but an important one. We're talking about the abusive toll of abusive relationships. The kind that doesn't always leave bruises, but leaves deep marks on the mind, the heart, and the soul. If this topic feels close to home, please know you are allowed to pause, you are allowed to step away, and you're not alone in this. When people hear the word abuse, they often imagine shouting, violence, or visible harm. But abuse isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's whispers. Abuse can look like constant criticism disguised as concern, gaslighting, being told your feelings are wrong or imaginary, walking on eggshells, isolation from friends and family, control over your time, emotions, or self worth. And over time, these behaviors don't just hurt, they reshape how you see yourself. Emotional, the emotional toll that abusive relationships take. It's not just one sided. It's not just a one sided thing. It's it's sided on both sides. It's not just males being abusive to females. It goes both ways. And the sad part is people, whenever they think of abusive relationships, because it's 90% of the time, it is the male being abusive to the female. But it can go both ways. It doesn't have to go one way. And abuse doesn't happen just physically. It happens mentally. It happens to the point where it reshapes how you look at yourself. It happens to the point that either you're being isolated from friends and family, you're constantly walking on eggshells, you're being gaslit, you're being criticized, you're receiving constant criticism that's disguised as concern, you're being controlled, your time, your emotions, or your self-worth. But there's other parts to this. There's the slow emotional drain. Glad that's muted. One of the most damaging parts of abusive relationships is, yeah, and Rand's absolutely right. Um, Male abuse is extremely underreported. It is. Uh, Ren, Ren, for those of you on the Spotify and YouTube side of this, Rennell is a dear friend of mine. He is my brother, and he is also a sheriff. He works in the bailiff department of his county. So he would know he would know a lot. But male abuse is extremely underreported. Most abuse that gets reported is male being abusive to female. The males don't report their significant others male or female, either one, for abuse. But there's the slow emotional drain. One of the most damaging parts of a abusive relationship is how slowly they wear you down. At first, you may feel confused, then anxious, then tired, emotionally exhausted in ways sleep can't fix. Many survivors describe it describe chronic self-doubt, guilt for being too sensitive, emotional numbness, feeling responsible for their partner's moods, losing confidence in their own reality. Abuse teaches you to shrink yourself to survive, and shrinking yourself comes at a cost. Again, emotional numbness, something that we talked about on the podcast the other day. Those emotional numbness means that you numb yourself to anything emotional. You lose all feeling of emotion. You start feeling responsible for your partner's mood. You should never feel responsible for anyone's mood but your own. Being too sensitive, there's no such thing. Being too sensitive is like saying that you're um, not being sensitive enough. Chronic self-doubt. Starting to doubt yourself. It's not just once or twice, it's religiously. You doubt yourself every day. You start to be molded with an abusive relationship. You start to how do I put it? You start to feel like something that you could have done something different. That everything is on you. In an abusive relationship, you feel like everything is on you. You're constantly being blamed, whether you're the female or the male side. But leaving is hard in an abusive relationship because you build what's called trauma bonds. A question survivors hear far too often is, why didn't you just leave? But many people don't understand is trauma bonding. Abusive relationships often cycle between hurt, apologies, love bombing, and hope. That cycle creates a powerful emotional attachment, not because the relationship is healthy, but because your nervous system is trapped in survival mode. Leaving isn't weakness. Staying isn't stupidity. Both are responses to trauma. Basically, what happens in an abusive relationship is they hurt you, then they apologize, then they love bomb you, then they give you hope, then they repeat the cycle. And eventually, your response to the trauma becomes something that you can't shake. That your body is in survival mode. Your body, your nervous system. So leaving isn't weakness. Staying isn't stupidity. They're both responses to trauma. The damage to your identity. One of the deepest wounds abuse leaves behind is identity loss. You may ask yourself, who was I before this relationship? Why don't I recognize myself anymore? Can I trust my own judgment? Abuse teaches you to doubt your instincts, and rebuilding that trust takes time. Healing isn't about becoming who you were before. It's about becoming someone stronger, safer, and more self-aware than you ever had to be. Healing doesn't happen in a straight line. Some days you'll feel empowered. Other days you'll miss the person who hurt you. And that doesn't mean that you want the abuse back. It means you're human. Recovery from an abusive relationship may include therapy or counseling, relearning your own boundaries, grieving the relationship you hoped for, reconnecting with your body and emotions, learning what healthy love actually feels like. There is no timeline. There is no right way to heal. And for you survivors, the ones of you that have survived an abusive relationship, if you're listening to this and thinking this sounds like my relationship, I want you to hear this clearly. It wasn't your fault. You didn't imagine it. You're not broken for staying. And you're not weak for still feeling the impact. Your pain makes sense. And your reactions make sense. And your healing is possible. There are resources. If you or someone you know is currently in an abusive relationship, help is available. In the U.S., you can contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE or 1-800-799-7233 or visit thehotline.org. If you're outside the U.S., local crisis lines and shelters can offer confidential support. You deserve safety. You deserve peace. Guys, there is help. There are resources for help. And some people never get a chance to see those resources because they're trapped in an abusive relationship that they want to leave. They want to seek that help. But the abuser continues to drag them back in. And you're not alone. You're not too much. And your healing does matter, guys. You may not realize it, but getting out of an abusive relationship is the hardest thing you'll ever do. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. Getting out of an abusive relationship is something that not many survivors don't get to tell their story because they don't want to relive what happened. They don't want to relive the nightmare that was their relationship. They would rather sit there and instead of seeking help after they've gotten out, and instead of healing after they've gotten out, it's hard to not want to go back, even though you know that relationship's abusive. You love that person. That person may have loved you at one point, but abusive relationships happen every day. And it's like Rin said, statistically, male abuse is extremely underreported. It's extremely underreported. Men do not report an abusive spouse. But if you are in an abusive relationship, man or woman, you should report it. You should seek help. Being in a domestically abusive relationship, whether it's physical or mental, or both is not the way to live. It's never the way to live. You shouldn't have to live in constant fear. You shouldn't have to live in a relationship that is unhealthy. Being in a relationship that is unhealthy, I hate to say it, but abusive relationships can turn deadly. They really can. Because every person in this lifetime, or should I say, every person in this world has a point to where they snap. Being in an abusive relationship is harder, and it pushes your buttons more. At what point do you say it's time to leave? At what point do you finally seek the help? At what point do you end up snapping and saying no more and doing something that ends up landing you somewhere that you don't want to be? So, if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it, or save it for yourself on a day when things are feeling heavy. Take care of yourself. If you're a survivor, congratulations. You've made it. If you're still in a relationship that is abusive, seek help. And I will say that phone number again for the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That's 1-800-799-SAFE or 1-800-799-7233. Or visit thehotline.org. And again, if you're outside the U.S., your local crisis lines and shelters can offer confidential support. You deserve safety. You deserve peace. And thank you for trusting this space today. Thank you for listening. And I hope if you're going through an abusive relationship that you find your way out. I really do. It's never right. It's never right when a relationship turns abusive. It's never it's never um it's never something you want to see happen. But sadly it happens every day. It happens every day and there's not much we can do about it. We can't stop it. We as people cannot stop it. Only the people inside the relationship can. We can offer help. We can offer a way for them to heal. We can offer a space for them to feel safe. But they have to start the healing process, not us. Guys, I'm going to thank you for being here as a part of this podcast. I'm sorry that this was the topic for tonight, but it's something that not a lot of people are aware of. And as I've said many times before, this podcast is to talk about real life things that absolutely matter. Everything about real life matters. It's to bring awareness to what people are not aware of. If we change just one person's life, then we're slowly changing other people. We're slowly helping. We're slowly making ourselves better people. I love each and every one of you. I love each and every one of you. And I'm going to shut these doors. And I know that I said on the holiday episode that that was the last episode until the new year. I don't think I'm going to be able to say that. But let's lock the doors. Let's keep the lunatics safe. And guys, until next time, I'm Matt Kildorn, and I'll talk at you later. Good night.